And Anavasi actually refers to, it's a Greek word which means the ascent, because ascension was a word that was thrown around a lot in the last few years. And it never really agreed with me because it always seemed like people are ascending to a point and then they're above you. And then if you're not up there, you're down here. And I didn't like the connotation behind it. And then when came across this word and I realized ascent actually means the climb. So it's actually where the work is. And it's not just going up the staircase, it's having to come back down it once you've had your enlightened moment and awakened and reintegrate into a 3D reality. And I think that's where the more important work is, rather than, once you're above there, that's where you're at. You realize everyone's got a story. And as a storyteller, you've actually got a responsibility to layer that in and basically make it as authentic as possible. Because if you're just sort of sitting in a room somewhere with the same production team and you don't know that world and you're writing scripts about it based on other movies that exist, you just wind up in an echo chamber over and over again. Everyone's utilizing the same content like a rinse cycle, you know what I mean? So I think it's very important to tell stories that actually have weight in them. That's a big thing for me. That's new media to me. And the same thing I think is going to happen with film. And it's going to, the Marvel movies and all that are just going to be rehashed shit. And it's going to be over and over the same thing. And people are going to get bored and pull towards something new. There's people who've said this to me a million times where they're like, oh, well, I'm not really a writer or I'm not a storyteller. I'm like, if you've experienced something and then you told another person what happened, you're a storyteller. You basically just gave someone a rundown of an event that took place. And some people can do it, better than others, and they know how to trim the fat and make it entertaining or put jokes in and make it humorous. But I think at our core, it's just part of us. It's like anything, like all those old Dharma types of, warrior and entertainer and everything. It's all wrapped up in every single part of the collective experience. It's there. And then some people access it and some people choose not to.
What have we become? Why do we feel trapped? And how do we rise above it all? In a world designed to keep us asleep, the questions we've long ignored are now unavoidable. This isn't just a film, it's a journey, an ascent to inner standing, to waking up from the illusion that has kept us disconnected from our true selves. We are at a pivotal moment in human history, where we begin to question the narratives we've been fed and reclaim the divine spark within us. At the heart of Anavasi are interviews with incredible minds from around the world. Scientists, trauma experts, holistic teachers, indigenous leaders, public speakers, all sharing insights from their unique fields. This all runs parallel to a beautiful narrative film, showing humanity at their most vulnerable, their most transformative, and at their most empowered. Together, they weave a story of awakening, of breaking free from the cycles that have bound us for generations, and of reaching a higher consciousness. But to bring these vital stories to life, we need your help. Through the Australian Cultural Fund, your tax-deductible donations will allow us to complete this film and share it with the world. Your contribution is more than just funding a film. You're helping to light the way for a collective awakening. Join us on this journey. Contribute today and be part of something truly transformative.
G'day everyone, welcome to Skydive Podcast with myself and Madeleine Doherty, and we're here for part 2 with Christopher Kay, although you'll never get to hear part 1 because it's off somewhere in the Zoom metaverse or wherever, because I actually lost it last time, so that's a whole other story. But we did record this 2 weeks ago, and as always, when something like that happens, it was the best conversation ever, wasn't it, Madeleine? Madeleine was very, very pissed off, and Chris, I think you took it very well. Like an absolute gentleman you are. So anyway, for those that don't know, Chris is a filmmaker. And the reason we got him on last time and again today is to speak about his upcoming film that he's working on, and also just his story, which is incredible, as well as just your insights on everything, Chris. So Yeah, we were blown away last time with the chat. It was just great, and it was just like chatting with old friends. It was very comfortable. Um, where do I go from here? I
I,
guess
I I love that you're amping. I love that you're amping that one up, and now there's so much pressure on this
I
one
know
to be even
it's for
better. And
sure.
I'm like, what the hell's going to happen here? I have no idea.
Nothing's ever as good the second time, so I don't think we'll recreate it. But whatever, it's we're doing something new. So yeah, Chris, maybe tell us a bit about yourself and what you do, and then we'll get into the documentary.
Yeah, sure. So I've been a filmmaker for quite a long time now. A good, I'd call it probably in terms of solid practice of it, a good decade, but it's been in my DNA and in my childhood from a very, very young age. Because I always knew I wanted to be a storyteller from young. But in the last 10 years, basically it was that, figuring out what you want to make, and you've got to go and do various different kinds of films and different kinds of narrative content in order to sort of find your feet and figure out where you're headed. And I was sort of on a good momentum track where I'd made a feature film in 2018, which was my first like long form feature. And after that, I made a short film that I was going to expand into a feature, which I think we were talking about last week. I think Maddie watched it just before the meeting. And that was going to be expanded into a feature film. But then obviously when lockdowns and everything else happened, it sort of got waylaid like most people's plans did during that whole point in time, where it was like anything you had in the momentum tank was done and you sort of didn't know what was coming. And since then, I've moved into basically what I've always wanted to push into is documentary space. And the documentary I'm currently working on, which is about basically it's about awakening and it's about consciousness. And that's how I actually got in contact with Dale the first time we'd met, just by a twist of serendipity, kind of, where I knew I wanted to interview you, and then I literally bumped into you. And basically, since then, I've been rounding it up and pushing it down the line to get as many people over and interviewed as possible that I want to speak to. And it's about halfway in, but we're still raising funding at the moment and everything else. And it's taking on a life force of its own at the moment. So it's going really well.
Yeah. Oh, this is so weird. I feel like we're rehashing it again because I forgot like we spoke about your short film. Mads, I'll let you chime in. What did you think of Chris's short film? Because you said
Yeah,
well, tell me what you
I
think.
bawled my eyes out. Yeah. No, I think we spoke about last time. The thing that I really loved was there was so many mini stories. Well, I wouldn't even call them mini because it was like because it's a short film, obviously time-wise they're mini, but there was big stories, lots of big stories within the bigger story. And I loved that. And I think that that's kind of where you're going with a documentary, but now it's a little bit different in the sense that it's not essentially fictional, you're actually, speaking, yeah, essentially sharing people's truth. But you were yeah, if anyone hasn't, yeah, we'll definitely link it because it was a really, really, really beautiful thing to sit down and watch. And it brought up a lot for me because just all the emotions that it touched on and the different perspectives that were shared. I think it really, like, it kind of speaks into what we were speaking about the last time we chatted, was that point of balance where you start to see and hear from different perspectives. And it gives you this. I mean, we actually had Will Keller come on the conference the other day and he was talking about love and I guess the higher forms of love. And it is actually, that's kind of what it brings forward. Like I've been thinking about this and it's interesting. Like we've had that conference chat and then we've had you on and I'm like, it really is learning people's stories opens you up to understanding and compassion. It really does allow you to kind of sit with people from that space. But yeah, I loved it. I absolutely bawled my eyes out. I had to, yeah,
Yeah, for
had
those
to.
that haven't seen it, it's on your website, isn't it, Chris? And it's
It
called.
is, yeah.
We'll link it as well.
So
Um, yeah, sorry, just to cut in there with what Maddie said, it's interesting you bring that up because I think the layering, even in any art form that anyone does that, even if it's not story based, really, even a painting will tell a story, and there's something that's behind it to bring to the forefront. But making that short film where there was a big focus on homelessness and stuff, I actually went around and spoke to a lot of homeless people
yeah,
and the different reactions. Like, some people throw things at you and tell you to get fucked, and other people just, want to actually open up to someone and speak. You get all sorts. And what I learned from it was from that perspective was actually speaking to them like human beings and trying to be compassionate, even if sometimes they're not that way reciprocated. Once you get to that true story of that, you realize everyone's got a story, and as a storyteller, you've actually got a responsibility to layer that in and basically make it as authentic as possible. Because if you're just sort of sitting in a room somewhere with the same production team and you don't know that world and you're writing scripts about it based on other movies that exist, you just wind up in an echo chamber over and over again. Everyone's utilizing the same content like a rinse cycle, you know what I mean? So I think it's very important to tell stories that actually have weight in them. That's a big thing for me.
Mm. Do you think it's common in filmmaking for, I guess, that kind of in the field research to take place, like for people to go? Because I know in some like novels that I've like fictional novels I've read, like people have gone and spoken to different people. Or do you think it's like a weaving of that or people's own perceptions, or what do you think the process is on the most part? And do you think it's an intentional thing that people choose to actually like what you went and did, I couldn't imagine everyone doing that, you know what I'm saying? Like, so do you think that that's a general process when it comes to filmmaking or even like writing?
I think it does. Writers, yeah, I see it a lot more in writers,
Mm.
weirdly, than the actual people who pick up a script and turn it into something. But there's one constant through all of it. You're basically injecting your own experiences through the
Mm.
veil of someone else anyway. So I don't know how someone would react in that situation without guessing, but I know how I would react. And then you sort of every character is basically an extension from that. And it's you try and do your best job possible without letting it get too egocentric and be about you directly and sort of weave those things in. I think it is a process and everyone's just completely different. So it's, whatever they make out of it. But I think everyone's DNA is imprinted into what they're making.
Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting.
I
Because
think
yeah.
you go.
I was just gonna say, because I've been rereading Michael Talbot's book recently. I've just been telling everyone to go read it at the moment because
Yeah,
it's
that's our
just,
fucking book club now. Apparently we're in a book
yeah,
club.
with the book club, yeah. It's no, but it's really interesting because I've been thinking about storytelling and even just yeah, like movies and different things, and how like in obviously in the understanding of holographic, a holographic universe is we're essentially connected to it all. So it's like it's really interesting when you think about when people are really centered and they allow the stories to come through, they are essentially tapping into multiple experiences. Like if what I'm trying to say is when you think about like the esoteric level of storytelling or like movie making or writing a book, it's actually quite profound when you think about it from that other level, because you're bringing in literally a fractal of like all of these different experiences and then revealing it, for people. And I know we spoke about last time was like this new, I guess, this new kind of way of movies and documentaries and things like that. We've obviously seen it done in a way where it's probably maybe somewhat detrimental at times. And this kind of new way that you're kind of envisaging, I guess, sharing stories without like changing the context and things like that. It's kind of a reflection of where we are going as well. Like, in our level of consciousness too. It's like we're able to actually have that awareness and present it in that way too. But yeah, I've just been thinking so much about that. Like, yeah, it's just interesting.
I definitely agree with you there. And it's every person there's people who've said this to me a million times where they're like, oh, well, I'm not really a writer or I'm not a storyteller. I'm like, if you've experienced something and then you told another person what happened, you're a storyteller. You basically just gave someone a rundown of an event that took place. And some people can do it, better than others, and they know how to trim the fat and make it entertaining or put jokes in and make it humorous. But I think at our core, it's just part of us. It's like anything, like all those old Dharma types of, warrior and entertainer and everything. It's all wrapped up in every single part of the collective experience. It's there. And then
Mm,
some people access it and some people choose not to. I think that's just what happens.
mm,
That's
yeah.
how we learn through storytelling is but if you go back to like tribal stories or reading the book or like or religions based on the book and then the modern storytelling of cinema and documentary is huge. So Chris, can we touch on because I think we spoke about last time, but obviously this documentary, it's been in the making for what, about 4 years or whatever. You can let me know. But I want to know the evolution that this film has taken because it's coincided with your own evolution. Because you spoke last time about what you originally set out for it to be and how it's taken a life of its own. So maybe,
Yeah,
so
it's
I guess what I'm asking is like, give us a bit of a tell us who you are and how that's.
yeah, I gotcha. I
But
gotcha.
I guess maybe yeah, even more so, a focus on the last 4 years and how that's because we've all changed and stuff. Even the stuff that we're talking about, it's constantly adapting, and it's almost cringy to go back and look at stuff we were talking about 4 years ago. So yeah, tell us about yourself over that
S-
period.
So I'll link it in together with what happened with the project because it's sort of hand
Yeah,
in
do.
hand. And I think this does happen when you're sort of moving into, and it's not necessarily just because you're making a film, but when you're moving into your sole purpose and actually doing things that you're meant to be doing in this life, and you've cleared away a lot of the thing, and you're constantly trying to better yourself, which is an ongoing process. Like it's for your whole life you're doing that. What I realized was when the project started, it came from a real place of anger. It was the first step towards it was I wanted to shake people and I wanted to tell them what's what and basically talk down to them. And that was reflective of where I was at that point because I was pissed off about how the world was going. I was frustrated with everything going on. There was a big divide happening and that upsets me as well. And then I thought, oh, hang on a minute. So if I come from a point of anger or fuel that lower vibrational energy and put it into my project, I'm actually putting that out there to separate people even further and just actually find an audience that already believes what I say and they're an echo chamber and there's no point. Whereas how do you actually come from a point of realizing that you can tell it a different way and actually come to it from more of a point of compassion? And what happened to me then, because during that point, I think, Dale, you were the first interview I did, and we've already spoken about this, that I remember I rang you and I said, um, that interview we shot, and you straight away, because I was ringing you to ask if we could reshoot it, you're like, yeah, I want to reshoot that. And I was like, beautiful, very good. So
Did
we've
I
both
say that
we've both
first?
grown since that point, I
So
think.
I'll just quickly set the scene too, because I said it last time as well. But you've like asked me to come down to Carlton or wherever you were,
Yeah.
and there was like blockade of cops, and there was like military checkpoint to get out of Melbourne. So it was in just to let people know the context of that time and that period and what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it was right in the peak of the craziness. Like we were really in the thick of it. And I think we were both probably in a much different place to where we are now because the journey just keeps going and going, which is the trickiest part of actually making content around it. And which is why podcasts and things like that are so up to date and current. Because if you're making something for a couple of years, by the time you release it, it might not be relevant anymore. And that was another thought in my mind too. And what ended up happening was I basically started shifting the idea towards being more about human consciousness, the trauma that it's gone through as a collective, and not just because of the last 5 years, but beyond, like it's been going on for a very long time. And, I went down all sorts of rabbit holes and research and just sat there buried in stuff. And what ended up happening as a byproduct of what was going on in the world and everything else, I actually went through a really bad illness shortly after. And it took me by surprise. It was related to gut health. So it was a bacteria and it was all this wild shit was going on. And I had to pause basically everything. And I've never had a fear of death, but that put me to a point of probably the most scared I've ever been. Because I'm a person who's come from a point of control, especially being a director of film is like that's part of your job is you need to be able to control the set, control the lighting, control the actors, control how things are said and put across in the editing. And then I lost all control and I was like, wow, this is an interesting lesson. So I got humbled really quickly and realized that now on the back end of it, that was the most necessary thing that I had to go through. It was the darkest night of the soul I've been through, but I wiped away so much stuff that was just sitting there that I thought I dealt with. And what's come out from after that is I've gone back into the project, which took some time to get back to. It was a good year and a half hiatus, and started realizing that the voices that I needed and how I need to tell this story is to reach people and meet them where they're at on every kind of level. So not get up on a pedestal and talk down to them, basically tell them that, there's other people who have gone through what you've gone through. here's a multiple amount of voices to talk and help you navigate your way through this. And unfortunately, we don't have all the answers in the world because no one does. So we're still just raising questions, which is the most important thing. And once that's taken its own volition, basically, like anything that comes from that divine place where you start going from that inner core and you're doing it all properly from the inside out rather than the outside in, the stars aligned for you. And people I had on my interview list where I thought, there's no way I can get this person. How is this going to happen? Then all of a sudden I'm interviewing Julie Santel, a very close friend of mine who's a trauma counselor who I interviewed. And she knew one of the other people. And she's like, oh, the neighbor who's two houses over, he basically goes up to the Northern Territory and meets with this person all the time. I'll go get him now. And it was done within a day. And I was like, okay, well, this is getting crazy. And it hasn't really stopped in that flow, which is how I know I'm on the right track, because it was a really long sort of hike through a very traumatic experience to be able to come out of that and now throw the ladder back to people and go, hey, we can help you hold your hand through this and basically give you some answers that you might be looking for, which is what the most important thing is to me.
Well, do you know what I pick up from that is what you kind of thought was coming out of it at the start was something for that time. Do you know what I mean? But it had to be released then, whereas this is what you're working on now. And I'm not putting words in your mouth, but it's like you're working on something that's going to be timeless. That information is going to be. It won't matter if you watch it 10 years from now, right? There's going to be information. There's going to be stuff in there for everyone.
That's an ongoing choice, Dale. You're spot on, and it's an ongoing choice. And I've even to the point where one person who was on my list for a while actually went very hardcore political and sort of killed off a lot of their old work and just jumped into that arena. And I was like, you know what? I haven't lost respect for them, but I don't think they're right for this anymore. And I have to sort of make those decisions as it's evolving. It's an ever evolving thing. And it's exactly what I want it to be, is timeless. And the stories, there's a narrative story that'll play out across 7 chapters with while the documentary's happening. So it's basically like 2 films at the same time when you watch it. And what those stories are going to be is something that you can go back to in 10, 15, 20 years time. And it's the reason I know you be able to do that is because if you go back 30, 40, 50 years from now, it's still relevant. So it's something that needs to be there across the board rather than, oh, here's everything we focus on now. Because what I see now with a lot of whether it's religious, political, anything like that, there's this, let's separate further, separate further, separate further. And that's the opposite of what I want to do. I actually want to unite, if anything, and bring people back together to find their true self.
Mm. Yeah, I love it.
That's powerful.
So, go, Matt.
Oh, I just want to
we're being very polite without not interrupting now. So
yeah,
I even saw Madeleine just put on mute before, so jump in.
Not to jump ahead, but I want to know, Chris, what your vision is for the future, like for this work. Like, do you want to continue doing documentaries? And if so, like, what do they look like? Or like, have you been like, not to just skip past this, but I'd just love to know what your like bigger vision is that, you know, you sort of feel bubbling, because I'm assuming it would come up occasionally, you know, while you're doing this, and I guess like ideas while you're conversing with people. I'd love to know, like,
yeah. I feel like I'm a different person than I was 5 years ago. And the main reason being, I always thought I had everything planned, where I was like, this is the life path. I'll do this project in this year. I'll do a feature, then I'll do this. Everything was meticulous. And it's that Capricorn nature in me. I can't help. That's what's been ingrained. And the more I have pushed into what I'm doing now, where people go, what's next, and ask those questions, it's endless possibilities. Because it's like, if I'm the way that this one's come together is when I've been perfectly in flow and letting it sort of, I know it's got me. It's sort of just, I'm going with it. I'm moving with the tide. Dale actually said this to me a while ago. It's something that you said to me a few years ago that stuck. And you said, it's either people are swimming against the current or it's swim with it. And I just like to float. And I'm like, well, floating's much better, because it's like you're still going in the direction you need to go, but you're allowing, you know, something greater than you to carry you, even though it's still internally you. But when you're going down those rapids and navigating all that, I might go back to, you know, doing a narrative feature and do it every second one a documentary. It could be a million different things. And the main thing that's piqued my interest, if I had to get nailed down to an answer, because I've been interviewing Indigenous people from all walks, and this not only Australia, this includes internationally, and speaking to some really profound people who are talking about the way we used to live, reconnecting to the earth, Mother Earth and Pachamama and all this stuff. And I've been really going into that, and it's all got different words in different, different sort of dialects, but it always means the same thing. And I'm really getting drawn to that at the moment, where it's like if I had to jump into a thing, that's the area I really want to investigate further. So I think I would follow that around the world if the opportunity came up.
Mate, I can tell that's why. You just seem like you're in a really great place now, and I think that it's just so interesting that that's your interest peak at the moment,
Hmm. I think,
especially when the
yeah,
world is like being pushed so much to like separation. Not that I don't even think separation's really happening. I think so much of it's just this
yeah.
drama that they pretend is really separation online. I see the opposite happening, but
I think Dale, there's a thing just back to what Maddie was talking about as well. It's not just from my standpoint of where I want to move, why I've shifted into this art form to actually have it have more of a purpose and have more weight to it and try and help as many people as possible. I really think everyone, I'm sure most of your viewership know this, but we're seeing the end of an empire. We're seeing it collapse. And in that transitional period between, the reclaiming of power and all that kind of thing that's going on, we're seeing shifts in media where basically, no one's really even paying attention to mainstream media anymore. No one gives a shit. And it's like even the people that revered it and were watching it are still like, this is bullshit. I'm not listening to this. And there's more pulling away. And then you've got open platforms in long form like podcasts and what you guys doing with, Sky to Earth and everything. People are getting pulled towards that. So that's almost a new way of that's new media to me. And the same thing I think is going to happen with film. And it's going to, the Marvel movies and all that are just going to be rehashed shit. And it's like, it's going to be over and over the same thing, same thing. And people are going to get bored and pull towards something new. And even the legal system, like I know there's people fighting legislation and trying to put new things in effect. So I think we're seeing the building of that now. And it's coming out in wonderful, wonderful ways with really amazing people. And the more it happens, the happier I get. It's incredible to watch.
well, isn't it interesting that they talk about the attention span of people now with like TikTok and all these kind of things, but then in the opposite, like long format 3 hour conversations are more popular than ever too. So it's like, but you can see the complete polar expressions happening,
Do you
and
think they're
maybe
trying?
different consciousness that are attracted to each, right? So that there's like that separation coming, and then yeah, it's like both things always playing out.
Do you think they're trying to pull people's attention spans back by having those formats of reels and everything else? Do you think it's intentional?
I think it's definitely part of it. I think the main thing is what that does is it makes people very passive and they don't achieve things. So like it makes like setting it because all goals, all things like worth achieving take a lot of time. Like if you just study something, you can't just go learn something quickly. It's a long and arduous process, and like even everything like what you've been through the last 4 years. Whereas it's almost like training you to get it quick, sharp. It's
Same
like
as same as AI to some degree, you know what I mean? Like when it's used incorrectly, which a lot of people are doing it for, and it's, they're helping it replace their own jobs or whatever else. They're not actually retaining the skill anymore. Like the skill's going away. It was even back when they were putting reverse sensors in a car. I refused to get them. And I remember it was an optional extra, and I was like, "No, I want to know how to reverse." I'm like, I'm not depending on the beeping. And they were like,
That's
"Really?"
funny.
And I'm like, "Nah, fuck that. I'm gonna do it myself."
they're really annoying, aren't they? My last car I got was the first one I had it, and it's got the side ones and the back ones, and then if you go over the middle light on the line on the road, it starts beeping, and it's just beeping all the time.
And I think with people like us, we don't like being told what to do. It's probably not a good idea.
Actually,
Yeah.
can I ask you a quick one now? Like, I mean, without me knowing, like, I don't know cinema, but I love it, and I guess like movies that I loved as a kid, I've gone back to so many of them in the last several years, and I just see them with a whole new light. So I guess I want to know like what are your favorite movies? And then I want to know like due to knowledge of like how they put this unbelievable layering within stories. Are you aware when you're creating a movie that are you intentionally doing that as a filmmaker? Because I don't know how they do this a lot of the time.
I really
I'm like,
think
is it actually unconscious that it's because
Mm.
I've heard this from someone else that
Question.
their
Mm.
partner was a filmmaker and they actually won a big film award, and she decodes symbolism, and she's like, this is the most unbelievable symbolism I've ever seen in the movie. And he did the whole thing, and he was unaware that he put any of this in there or the layering, right? So,
Yeah.
do you know what
I
I'm asking?
I think it's 50-50, to be honest. And this is like, I can't possibly know, what people's intentions are when they're making stuff. But from my own personal experience, I will put my hand up and say I have bullshitted sometimes when people are going, "Did you mean to do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I totally didn't. All right.
Really?
It was a happy accident that's come in. And I think when you're tapping into
Ah, that's
a
why.
a very interesting space divinely somewhere. I don't know where it comes from. Like I feel like when you get an idea, it's a download, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this. I feel like everyone's had this at least once in their life. You get an awesome idea for something that comes out of nowhere and you do nothing about it. About 6, 7, 10 years later, someone's invented it in another country on the other side of the world and they can't have possibly stolen it from you. You never wrote it down.
Yeah.
And I think it's just in the grid and it's going to worthy vessels as a conduit. And I think when you're in the flow state making these things, that these kind of things do. And that's not to say things aren't intentional. Like the stuff that I'm going to be layering into the documentary, I've got, chaos planned for just putting in as much layering as possible in the audio bed and in the visuals and everything else. To the point where I'm basically even color coding some of the scenes like chakra points and I'm intentionally putting in red for root chakra and I'm intentionally putting in green for the heart. And these are things that I think of, but I'm sure more will come out, and I'll even be surprised myself.
Yeah,
It's just
there'll
a
be other
byproduct.
layers.
It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. That's called spontaneous inventions too. So that's actually what you said before when someone has an idea or two people invent the same thing at the same time. And it's actually documented.
It's wild. Like even when I spoke to Trevor Hendy and got him for the documentary, it was only we shot his interview about, I don't know, about a month ago now. And I spoke to him for the first time on a call for about, it was a good 2.5, 3 hours. Like we had a really long chat on our first discussion. And one of the things he told me blew my mind because he said years and years back, and this is like, early 2000s, late 90s, he always had an idea in his head for wanting to make a documentary about consciousness and interview people from all around the world. And he was like, I'm not a filmmaker. I wouldn't know how to go about it. It wasn't really a driving force. And I let it go. In a weird way now, that idea's come through to me, who
Mm.
went through this experience to have the weapons to be able to put this thing out there and actually, achieve it and execute it. And then in a roundabout way, I've gone and seeked him out and gotten him to be in it. So he's still participating in the idea that he had 15 years ago, 20 years ago. It's
It
crazy.
just was someone else.
Yeah.
I think he actually was in an episode of Baywatch from
Yes, he
memory.
was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think there's a
there's a
photo
picture
of
of him
him.
with
Yeah.
like Pamela Anderson or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is what we were talking about last week because someone that came and visited me was going to see Trevor Hendy the next day, and then you
Yeah,
brought
it's
up that
yeah,
he's like,
it's crazy. I don't even get surprised by this stuff anymore. When someone just says it, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That's fine.
Actually, you didn't answer my other question though. What are your like favorite films? I know Madeline. I can
He
answer.
really wants to.
Madeline has I don't know. Actually, I'm not going to bag you up, but yeah, she loves Crocodile Dundee. That's her film.
That's a good film.
It is a good film.
It
That's a good film.
was an incredible film. I
Yeah,
mean, I think they slowly get worse, but I mean, Paul Hogan's still in it, so I'm happy.
yeah,
But
true.
the first one was the best, definitely. Yeah.
Um,
Do you have a favorite? I guess it's probably hard
And
for
Back to the Future. I love Back to the Future too.
Back to the Future's good.
there's it's funny. I went through a different sort of thing with it. I was obsessed with films from young. My parents really gave me a good education in film and music. Whether intentional or not, they were just, film and music buffs themselves. And, didn't want to make it or weren't in the creative aspect of those things, but they really appreciated it. And I grew up watching, Marx Brothers movies, Charlie Chaplin, like really
All right.
old stuff when I was a kid. And all the Looney Tunes cartoons, we had tapes and tapes of those things. And all that whacked out humor has been something that's sort of stayed with me the whole time. So comedy's always reign high because I love having a laugh. But I went through stages. Like I loved gangster films at one point more than anything. I loved Goodfellas, Casino. Like I was obsessed. Um, and then sort of when you start realizing and seeing more programming, the more you revisit these things and you see a lot of the propaganda in some of the films and where they're trying to make things a certain way. And one of the biggest ones is in romantic films. I reckon that's the biggest one of all, because they're basically offering you this thing of, this is the perfect, you complete me, let's worship someone outside of you and really project your insecurities onto another person. But they'll fall for you at the end of the day when you have
Mate, the
your little arc.
romantic films, they like destroyed us men because they painted this picture of this dude that was going to go to all lengths to, and create.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah, I
when you
was like, I'm
start
not doing that.
I'm bitter. That's why I'm still single. I'm bitter.
when you
Sorry,
when you start when you start seeing those programs and you see that play out, I went through a phase where I was like, well, fuck movies, I'm not watching anything anymore. And I got pissed off for a while, where I was like, this is all horse shit, I can't watch this. But when you get through that corridor, again, that comes from that anger, which is like part of the 7 stages of grief when your old self is dying. And you go through the other side of it and you realize, okay, well, it's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You don't want to do that. You still look at stuff, you can learn from it. You can see a hero's journey arc that might be reflective of yours, not in exactly the same way, but there's something there that you can actually apply or learn from. And the one thing that I sort of have steered away from in more recent years is when it's entertainment for no reason, where it's like it really needs to have a point.
Yeah.
And probably weirdly, my favorite film is, or one of at least, is Samsara, which isn't really a film or a narrative film. This is basically a team that went around the world. I think it was 2010, somewhere there, 2008 maybe. And they took a Panavision around the world to Nepal, to pretty much every country. And it's basically a whole world with just visuals and no talking, no anything. It's just music, beautiful visuals. And it shows you every ancient culture from the inside. And I don't know how the hell they did this. It was basically a 4-man team, and they took Panavision cameras back then were huge, like they weighed a ton. And it still to this day holds up as one of the best pieces of work I've ever seen. It's unbelievable.
I was about to say I've never heard of it. It's got no, yeah, got no words.
I'll send you. Well, no, that'd be illegal. I'll buy you a DVD of it and send it to you.
Yeah. It's just started belting down rain here now.
We had rain this morning. It was lovely.
Can you hear that? I'm not sure if it's shut.
No, can't hear anything.
It's all right. Okay. All good. Yeah. All right. Well, Samsara. Maybe we'll have to watch that one.
Yeah, it's a big. It's hard to get. It's like all good films, you sort of got to dig for it a little. But very, very cool. Like, there's nothing really out there like it. And you wouldn't call it a film where you're watching a story and characters, but it's actually been a really heavy inspiration for what I'm shooting now. So that's one of those things where I think art inspires art, really.
It's interesting. I've been thinking about this the last couple of days about how much like resentment holds people back too, and it sounded like you had a bit of a resentment towards some of these movies that you loved after finding out some of that stuff too. And I was the same. Even I'm not watching Stand By Me. That's the movie where Corey Feldman was getting touched up on the set and all this kind of stuff. But it's like such a good movie. And then
Yeah.
I became like that with music too. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to appreciate the art for what it is, right?
I've gone through that for so long with movies. Like I reckon 10 years or something ridiculous. And then I sort of had a moment where I was like, okay, I'm going to start watching Netflix like 4 or 5 years ago. And I put it, and we chose this movie, and it was like a cannibalistic movie. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done.
Netflix is probably the worst place to start, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, 5 years ago, that was kind of like,
Yeah.
that was what was available. But yeah, and then recently I've become a little bit more open to things. I started watching that new series, Territory, or whatever it's called. And it's like an Aussie drama series. And it's driving me a little bit nuts because they're sort of like creating a perception around people living on the land. And my hubby keeps pointing out everyone's got new akubras, so all I can see is like these shiny akubras, and everyone looks like they've just been dressed up and put on set. And so I'm not really enjoying it too much. So I'm looking forward to the future Chris Kay platform where I can watch all my movies.
Hey, so Chris, do you want to tell us about the title of the film? Because you told us last time as well, and the meaning behind the title.
Yeah, it's a real crazy story behind where it came. I actually can't remember when this happened. Like I can't remember where it came from. It just fell out of the sky. And Anavasi is actually a Greek word. What I was looking for, or at least, open to, was I just wanted a word where it wouldn't relate to anything immediately when people saw it. So it's basically giving a word that already exists in another language its own meaning in an anglicized way. And Anavasi actually refers to, it's a Greek word which means the ascent, because ascension was a word that was thrown around a lot in the last few years. And it never really agreed with me because it always seemed like people are ascending to a point and then they're above you. And then if you're not up there, you're down here. And I didn't like the connotation behind it. And then when came across this word and I realized ascent actually means the climb. So it's actually where the work is. And it's not just going up the staircase, it's having to come back down it once you've had your enlightened moment and awakened and reintegrate into a 3D reality. And I think that's where the more important work is rather than, once you're above there, that's where you're at. Because anyone can disappear with a group of 20 people and go away and live in the mountains. And it becomes an echo chamber and you learn nothing for 20, 30 years. It's like I'll just remove myself from society. There's no point. But when you go into situations that used to give you an emotional reaction and you can sort of plateau through them and observe it and let it pass by, I think that's the road to enlightenment more so.
Chris, this is blowing me away. Now, Madeline, do you remember the conversation we had with Will Keller yesterday, 2 days ago? He spoke about love, and he said love is action, and love is both the journey and the destination. So it's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And it took me a while until someone said something really incredible to me, just in passing. It was a random conversation. But they said that I've always had that, disposition that hate is the opposite of love. It's actually not. Fear is the opposite and hate's a byproduct. And it's that when there's fear, that's a low energy vibration that can be, harvested. That's where that comes from. And love is the polar opposite. But unfortunately, both of them have to exist. It's that dualistic nature of the universe where you can't just be constantly in that state. That's where everyone thinks that they can get to and stay there and force themselves through it. I think you've got to jump around in a few different sandpits every now and then and realize what you're missing or what you need to move towards and just keep growing.
Did you? I'm trying to think the title. Isn't there a? Have you put a triangle in there?
I've got the poster here on the
I'm
wall.
trying to think.
It's
No.
it's a mountain with a staircase in it. Hey,
Um,
yeah, it's still, I mean,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I was trying to think of it. Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Because it means. So you say Anavasi means the ascent.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah,
I'm even thinking in the hero's journey kind of thing too. Because like this, the ascent is like the second half. But
yeah,
you're saying it relates to the descent as well too.
yes. It's like, a loop is not necessarily always a circle. You know what I mean? You can just turn around and come back the way you came. It's still that return home. So it sort of covers a lot of those markers as well. But it was the craziest part of all of it, which I do hate mentioning this, but it's just so funny that it made me laugh. I had that name and I checked it and I looked up everything and I'm like, cool, okay, no one seems to be really utilizing this. This is great. I think there was one mountaineering company in Greece or something that was using it. And I'm like, that's fine. And I bought domains and I got everything sort of squared away and I did all my artwork and I drew the main artwork and then turned it into a digital painting. And then all of a sudden, about a year later, just out of curiosity, I checked and a company called Ascensio, as in ascension without the N on the end, formulated a COVID test called Anavasi. And I couldn't stop laughing. And I'm like, how hilarious that I've come up with that name. And then there's a complete polar opposite of something from that side of things.
Yeah.
And for a moment, I was like, maybe I should change the title. And then I went, nah, fuck them. Like, I'm doing this. I'm going all the way.
Yeah, but
So, yeah.
it also just shows because we talk about like, there's this natural kind of layering and then there's this synthetic and how it's like there it kind of reveals that
Yeah.
in the fact that that name has sort of come through to you where it's manifesting in that way and then the name is manifesting on that other side, which is really interesting because I know I listened to your podcast with Nick Gibson and you mentioned around relationships and that came up a lot, doing the filming and all that. And that's something that I can't remember if I spoke about this last podcast, but that's something that I've come to realize in the last 4 years. And we've been talking about it, for the last couple of Sky to Earth conference, everything is
It
relationship.
come up again on Sunday, our presenter.
Yeah, it came up again because obviously we're talking about love and we're talking about relating to, and it's just this constant theme. But yeah, I remember in 2020 I was in this like group chat conference that went live, and it was all these different people speaking about their kind of take on what was happening from different levels. So everyone was like, some people were like psychic mediums and others were researchers and stuff like that. And I was kind of in this circle, and there's this woman going on about love and relationships and twin flames, and I was like, what, this is completely missing the point. Like, I was like, why is this woman going on this tangent? And it's like so funny because like 4 years on now, looking back, I'm like, even though she, I guess, had the kind of jargon of new age, and maybe it was wrapped up in some of that kind of stuff that was a little bit misaligned, the core of it remains true to this day, that the last 4 years has literally been all about relationship, whether it's relationship to self, to other. We've seen like things happen within partnerships, marriages, families, countries. Like, it's literally all been about relationship. And I see relationship as law, like natural law, because it's how we relate with this reality. And then you look at like corona, the crowning, and you look at like the left and right hemisphere of the brain, which is relationship. And that's why I find it interesting, because you've named it that. And then there's that link to COVID, and then relationship has been coming up a lot, within that as well. Can you speak into that? And also, can you speak into, because I know for you, like, what you shared briefly with Nick the other day, that journey as well, like in terms of like the learnings that you've had in relationship as well, because I think many people can resonate with that, and I think it's still happening to this day. Like, we get comments and stuff in Sky to Earth around, people still kind of in these spaces too, where it's really just coming up more than ever, and then we're obviously seeing it on a world stage too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's a real interesting thing that like, it took a while for me to see it, but this whole everyone using this sentence of speaking in your truth. I'll get round to relationships, but the whole speaking in your truth way that people express that, it doesn't mean you can just be an asshole to whoever you want. It's like, this is the person I am. This is my truth. So fuck all else, and it doesn't matter, and I'm not open to anything. What I've had to sort of see from that side is that people that I've interviewed, and getting a ringside seat to some really brilliant minds and being able to just, listen to them for 2.5, 3 hours, is that when you're in that space, and I was coming off the back of, a breakup during, lockdowns and everything else. So there was a lot that I was moving through. And the one thing that automatically, to stop yourself getting into a space of hurting yourself further, is when you go into that victim mode without even realizing it, and come from a point of, oh, it's the other person's fault and this and that. And this isn't just romantic relationships. This is across the
Yeah,
board,
yeah, no, I
right?
know. Yeah, I know.
It's
Yeah.
the blame in relationship, right? And that's a big thing. And it's even blaming things outside of yourself rather than taking responsibility. It's a real shirking of responsibility. And as I went through the process, even talking to, a trauma counselor and other people, and I sat there with a ringside seat to it, the one thing I noticed, especially coming from that point, was there's so many people that are not taking responsibility, but they're really in pain. And then I realized, shit, I'm in pain. And I'm carrying a lot of stuff where it's like, nah, I'm strong. I'll move through that. I've got other things to worry about, this and that. And then you consider all your options around closing off those areas of yourself a choice, because you like it, but realistically, you're scared to get hurt again, or whatever it might be. And what I got to learn from people by listening to them talk about that kind of thing about relationships was, every single person I've spoken to who's apparently, like, I revere them and I revere their intellect and how they speak, they're just as damaged. They're all flawed.
Mm.
And you see, when you get to their real stories about where their flaws are at, that we're all trying to figure it out, and that's okay. Everyone does it in their own time. And once you really break through that boundary of realizing that the world around you and the people that are in it and your relationships with people are a reflection of you, and those parts of your subconscious that you haven't dealt with, or those parts of your shadow that you haven't integrated into your own life, and it's blown back at you with the harshest mirror possible, That most people get stuck there. And I was stuck there a long time without realizing. It's not that they're not conscious of it. I just don't think they've been rocked enough to be able to put the ego away for a minute and actually step over that in order to get to the other side. And once I've done that, I've become the happiest I've ever been. And it's like I'm still, I've still got my bad days. There's still ups and downs. But it's a thing of, okay, each day and every relationship will be what I make it and what I put in. And I'm really blessed with, great friends. But in terms of the romantic department, yeah, I'm still working it out. And it's like everyone's got their balance and where they need to go. And that even includes our relationships with our family. You know what I mean? Like that's another thing that's ongoing. It's the best test of life is if you think you won't have an emotional reaction, just go spend a weekend with your parents. It's an old quote and it's true. And it's like you love them, but it's the triggers are there, and that's when you start working through those pieces, you really start rebuilding in the right direction, and relationships get better. No matter what the playing field is, it's always going to get better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to see that, and I think you can't understand those relationships in any context without experience. It's like it's absolutely based on experience. Um, yeah, because you have to go through those things. Even like when we had Anarchy Lucas on, and she talks about the unconditional model, and it's how like this hierarchy kind of feeds and works on itself, like through up and downward projection. And it's like it's all relationship with hierarchy. So I know, like you said before, how everyone's flawed, and that's what I noticed. Like when you start getting like when we started getting into I guess like knowing people in our community and these are like people that you looked up to and stuff, and then you're like, hang on, these are just as flawed individuals as me, right?
It's the other thing, it's a big thing is the prejudgments we carry, just going back to even, what Hollywood used to structure in us with the Jerry Maguire, you complete me mentality.
I'm going to interrupt you there because all
Yeah.
I can think of now is I used to love Bruce Springsteen, and there's like he's a scumbag, Bruce Springsteen, but like music, great. Do you remember he did that Secret Garden song, and it was for the Jerry Maguire movie?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And then they put it in at the end of the film clip. It's like you complete me, and then it's got the sax solo outro. Like, it's so good. Bruce is like he's one of the hardcore ones that they can always rely on him to turn up to the Democrat event and play. Like he's been doing that forever. I'm like,
Oh, it's insane what's going on with
dude,
like
his music is so good, and he's such a piece of shit.
yeah. I really have always looked at that whole scope of whether it's actors or people in that art world, or film or whatever else, where when the political opinion weighs in, they've lost me straight away. Like it doesn't matter which side either. It's just that thing
Yeah.
of just do what you're good at. Like, you know what I mean? Like we want to see more of that artwork and everything else, but just I don't know. It's always rubbed me the wrong way.
Well, actually, that kind of leads into a question because I think we did touch on it last time, like the importance of you having integrity and ownership of this film too. Like, do you want to speak about that as well? Because yeah, because I guess is that part of the reason why you've done this project? Like, because you're basically doing this whole kind of thing mostly by. I mean, you got help, but it is your vision that's going to be put out there. Was that the reason why you wanted to have ownership of it for the integrity of the film?
I think it's a look. I went through the traps of up until COVID and when I was working on other stuff, where it's not to slag off the industry and the creatives in it. It's like everyone wants to make anything that they can, however they can, and that's okay if they want to do that. But for me personally, going into that space for film, I realized it's again we go back to that collapse of an empire thing. It's when you look at Australian film and what's out there, from when it had its really strong run, like Crocodile Dundee and all that aside, and you go into the last decade or so, there's not really memorable stuff. There might be the odd good thing, but there's nothing that really stays at the forefront of the mind where people keep pushing it and it becomes a timeless kind of thing. And we're in this shift now where we're basically in such a great position to own our own content and take the power back that I think going into it, basically as I started getting into investment, there's two little examples I'll give you. I started getting into investment. I've got two executive producers on board, and we are still looking for more to come to the table to invest because films are very expensive. And the first two completely aligned. And it was basically from a point of belief, and it was everything done above board in the correct way. And I felt their intention of what was behind it. And I've got that thing in my head where it's like even money as an energy needs to have the correct intention when it's getting funneled into whatever project you're doing or whatever you're spending it on. And someone came to the table and offered, from memory, I think it was about $25,000 to be an EP. And I turned it down because I didn't get the right vibe. And I didn't agree with what they were sort of coming to the table with. It was coming from a very different kind of place, almost an egoic place. And I just thought this doesn't feel right, so I'm going to have to go with my instincts. So I turned it down. And I don't think anyone ever said no to this person before. It was a really interesting reaction. But it was nothing against them personally. It was just the feeling at the time. And looking at government funding bodies and people who, funnel that money, there's still, it's not always a creative input, but there's always something attached to it. I can't really explain it. There's something that's attached to that funding going through that thing. And then I know with a background in marketing, it's like, no, I want to approach it this way, and this is how I want to do it. And then you're basically just blocking every step of the way, and then having to renegotiate your terms each time. And I thought, well, if we've got an open stage and we've got channels we can run things through, and then you can go to distributors after the fact when a project's made rather than before, so they can't put their creative input into it or try and sway it a certain way or say that you need to fill these quotas. And I think that's the right way to go these days, is if you really want to make something from the heart with the right people will step up and help you see that vision through. And then basically it stays in the hands of the people. And if this is a project for them, then why wouldn't I do it that way? It doesn't make any sense to me any other way,
Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah. It's like the seed of intentions, like put into, the garden that you're creating. If they've got, I guess a different intention that doesn't really align with, I guess where you want to take it. It makes so much sense. I don't think that's thought about enough.
Yeah. Sorry, Dale, go ahead.
How you go?
No, you go.
Oh no, I was just going to say, what's the timeline of when you want to have the film done and then premiered?
It's this is what I'm aiming at. It's always subject to change, obviously, but it is a lengthy process. So I've shot 7 interviews out of 14, so I'm halfway through them, but have secured all the interviewees except 2, which I'm still currently in talks with. Then we have to shoot. How the project's going to work is we shoot all the interviews. I'll do basically a rough assembly of all the bits and pieces that I want to put together. And then we have to go back out again with a team and film all the narrative pieces and all the intercutting story pieces and everything, which is a longer process. And once it's cut, I'm trying my best, and this is where I really want it to aim, is the end of 2025, so December 2025. As numerologically, it's a number 9 completion year. And then the following year, we're going into that one energy and renewing everything. So I think at the start of that year is when I really feel like everything's got to come to a head and roll out at that point.
So you look at probably, end of 2025, start of 26.
Yeah.
Well, if you go on the flow, it'll come out then, or if it doesn't, it's meant to come out later. But so Chris has got. I'll put the link there to your it's where people can make funding donations as well too. And you said you'll take either small or even like if there's bigger.
Yeah, so there's executive producer spots still available, but we opened up $75,000 of the budget through the Australian Cultural Fund, which are basically a non-profit. And it's pretty much like crowdfunding without, having to pay the fees for crowdfunding websites and everything else and get them to line their pockets. So it all actually goes to the project. And every donation's tax deductible if people pay taxes. I don't know what they do. But yeah, it's all tax deductible. And it's through anavasi.tv is the website, or anavasi.com.au. They're both the same. And yeah, all the information's on there. There's more about the film. There's a preview trailer and everything else. So any help that myself or my team can get would be incredible, because honestly, everyone's paying. I know money's tight, and like organic broccolini is $8 a bunch now, whatever, right? But if you're you know, if you're paying Netflix subscriptions and everything else, and you're always like, there's never anything on, and I want to see the content that I really want to see, I think we've got to start pulling that way. And it's not just my project. There might be another person's who, you know, might be better than what I'm doing, and that's okay. But I really think we need to pay it forward with what we want to see, because it's the same as consuming food. It's like what you're putting in your body and what you're watching and absorbing is equally as important.
Yeah, yeah,
That's right. We all have a responsibility in creating this new way.
yeah.
And that's everyone's way of taking action in that direction too. So
I can just tell it's going to be good too. I mean, look, I've known you for like almost like 4 years now, and you've pretty much always been the same. I think we've kind of noticed each other grow together. I mentioned this last time that we kind of aren't in touch that much, and then every now and then we'll have a call on the phone, and yeah,
I see my dentist more than you.
yeah, yeah. But then we'll do the quick. You'll share everything that's been going on with you, and then I'll share everything that's going on with me. And there's always this crossover, um, and it's kind of been nice. But I just know that you're a person of integrity too, and I know that this is going to be a really cool project and finished product. So I'm really excited to see how it ends up. And if I'm going back in, we definitely film that again because it's like I think I was even cringing at the thought of it.
No, there's actually some really good stuff. It was funny. It was just different. It was just different content. And I think, you know, there's a few times where you can hear sirens outside during the interview, and I was like, yeah, it was like filmed under duress. You know what I mean? Yeah, a redo would be great.
It was like the peak of that period, Matt. It was like the absolute peak of the madness. Chris is like, you want to come down to Melbourne? I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm coming. Yeah.
you have to show that somewhere then. I want to hear it.
I think so. There'll be bits and pieces. Maybe we can get a few clips out of it as well.
You'll have to send me the unedited copy of Just Blind. I'll
done.
You'll be on the phone with Matt. You'll be like, oh my God, this idiot.
Really?
Do you know what Maddie said? She said about me the other day. She's like, you give such good advice too, but then you're a complete contradiction.
I think that's just part of the dualistic nature of the universe, Dale. We've all got a polarity of some description. I think we're all there.
Exactly. Yeah. So what's your what's your plans for the rest of this year?
Rest of this year, it is sort of work. I have pulled back a bit. There was a really long corridor. It's one thing I've learned actually, because I'll give you an example as the kind of mentality I get into, which I've had to learn in a different roundabout way, is when I did the feature film, normally to edit a feature and get it to, near polished, on average, you're looking at, quite a few months of editing, 4 months, 6 months, depends on how long the film is. And this was quite a lengthy film, and I did the first edit. I think it was in about 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and I wound up in hospital because I was editing 16, 17 hours a day at a computer, at a little laptop hunched over. And I thought I was having a heart attack, but it turned out to be a pinched nerve in my back.
Jeez.
And that was a lesson in itself. But now going into this, when things are chaotic, and I had to do interviews back to back the other week, and it really took a lot out of me. But I've learned, even through the course of that illness, that's one of the biggest things that taught me, was be kinder to myself as well and more patient, but remember to take that reprieve time as well. So it's like there's this constant pressure, and I know a lot of other creatives and even just everyday people get into this headspace where we're very hard on ourselves. Like if you're sitting around not doing anything, it's like, oh, you need to do this. You've got your mental checklist, get something going. Why are you sitting on your ass, you piece of shit? And it's got that sort of, that voice in your head. And as soon as you realize you can be still without that and there's nothing to feel guilty about, I think that just gives you that energetic flow to move into that next chapter. So it's almost like a perfect, you're riding that roller coaster really smoothly from that point. And that's how the rest of this project's going to play out for me, as well as the rest of the year, is just as it comes, tackle some challenges and then taper off and relax and keep doing that over and over.
Yeah.
True.
Have you got any advice on, like, because you were really, really sick with your health problems, weren't you, over the last couple of years?
Yeah.
You said, like, what was your advice for getting better? Because you said you lost heaps of weight. You had this bacterial thing in your stomach.
Yeah, it was a very traumatic experience, but it's really hard to talk for other people's experiences, but I know one real key thing to all of it is you basically have to get in a position where there's two things that are really, really important, sort of thing to go through. And what the first one is definitely let the old self go. Because as soon as you're in a kind of illness or you're in a place you don't want to be, and you're fighting like crazy to get back to this former past version of yourself, it's a recipe for disaster. That person's dead. They're not alive anymore. You're going to be reborn, which is a hard process. It's like childbirth. It's hard and it hurts. And when you get through to that other side and actually realize that you're going to become version 2.0 and you're no longer that previous person, it becomes easier. And
So do you think that was, oh, keep going.
Yeah, sorry. And the second thing is when you go from Western medicine or whatever you want to move towards and you start going into natural healing modalities, which I'm all for, right? I know sometimes those things can take longer in a roundabout way, but they're always a better approach. I think it's really easy to go from using external crutches from Western medicine and then completely going over to the other side and then using that as exactly the same modality, where you're basically saying that, oh, without these vitamins, this will happen to me. And if I don't take these supplements at this point in the day, I'll be dead tomorrow. And it's like, it's not the case. And you do need assistance. I had some incredible people, even in reflexology and all these other areas that really got me back on my feet by helping me learn about the vagus nerve and stimulating that and getting me back into that sort of groove again and getting your body to relearn through trauma and the neural pathways that have been formed at that point. But as soon as you realize that there's that polarity of, wow, I'm still giving up my power externally to something else, that was the turning point for me when everything changed, because I was going to naturopaths, this, that, and went on too long. They got their point and their purpose, absolutely. Yeah. But as soon as you get well, just remember your body is the thing doing the healing, not the drug you're taking or not the supplement you're taking. And then, if you get a cold, take vitamin C then. You don't need to be dumping zinc every day and taking all these things. And so I think people are doing more harm than good when they do that, to be honest.
I call it the constant need for healing. And you see people that go from the medical field and then they jump over to alternative medicines and they're as hell fast in that as anything. And then you see it in new age circles too, and like the constant need for an energy adjustment, like just constant. It's like, when's this equilibrium come? It's like, do you know what I mean? It's a constant chase, and I think they're better off half the time.
It's called holistic, but it's, if you think about it, it's actually not in the way that the alternative health space presents it.
Well, it's an imbalanced relationship, like when you're talking about relationship.
But it's just what Chris said. It's just a transfer of authority or power from, allopathic medicine to alternative. And I always think about this story. I can't even remember what book or where I heard it, but it was speaking about this young Aboriginal boy getting sick, and I guess the tribal healer or wise man gave him some herbs. And he said, this will help the pain. So it was kind of like showing him, we'll deal with the physical issue here, but let's go work out, why have you got that stomach pain? So let's go for a walk. And so they went for a walk, and he was like, what were you doing today? And the little boy took him on this journey of what he'd been doing over the last little while. And anyway, what ended up happening was they walked up this stream and they actually found that there was a dead animal in the water, and the animal had got there because something else had happened up the way that had got the animal in trouble to then be dead in the water, that was then causing bacteria in the water that the whole village was drinking from, and so on and so forth. And so the message was you can, use these physical, medicines to help you to, like you said, to boost you, to get your lymphatic system going again, all of these different things. But when we look at holistic medicine, if that little boy just got rid of the stomach pain and went on his merry way, what was happening upstream was going to continue to make other people sick. But it wasn't even just the physical thing of the carcass in the water. It was why that carcass was there, which was because of a miscommunication in a hunting. They went hunting and they didn't go to the right path, or they weren't in the right area to go hunting. And so really what it comes back to, which Mark Passio talks about a lot, is the plane of causality in the mind. So instead of following that alignment and spirit and the song lines of where to hunt, they've hunted in the wrong place, maybe from greed or excitement or whatever, which is then throw this animal across block, so on and so forth. And so, do you know what I mean? So that's holistic, right? Because you're looking at, okay, the little boy's getting sick from the stomach, but what's happening physically, and where has it come from? And it actually comes back to, like it actually comes back to a misalignment way down the river. And like, for me, that's how I see real healing should be. But in the alternative space, it's like, take this pill, take this remedy, take this supplement, take this, and you're good. But it's like, well, why are you getting sick? What's your environment like? What's the community like? And how has that come about? Like, why is community like that now? And that's what I feel like is missing in that space. But yeah, I always think about that story. I cannot remember for the life of me where I read that, but I'm pretty sure it was a book.
Now we'll just make it yours. It's a good one. You can own that.
Yeah, cool. Maybe I'll write it down somewhere.
Yeah, it's unreal. That's exactly what the process is for everyone. That's what I had to go through, is basically analyzing each step back. But there also comes a point where you have to get out of that analysis paralysis as well, where it's like you're looking for constant things of what caused what, and how you can get really obsessive about it really easily. And when you sort of get past, the victim mentality, and you get I think it's the perfect triangle. It's basically getting your physical sense, your emotional state, and your spiritual side aligned. And it was like I had to do work on all three simultaneously to bring that up. If I just work the physical and I'm not dealing with the other two, there's going to be an imbalance and there's a problem. So as soon as you're through that sort of looking glass and you start seeing it, I think it's a matter of just live your life. Like you don't need anything unless you're unwell or something's happening and you have to raise those questions. I forgot for so long what it was like to feel normal. I was like, I don't even know what it is anymore. It's been that long that I haven't felt that. What's the feeling? And it's when you don't think about it. It's literally like when you're in traffic driving and you zone out for 40 minutes and go, how did I get here and not kill anyone? You're in that flow state, you know what I mean? And once you do that with your health and you're in a good stead, I think all the rest just fixes itself. It just takes care of itself.
Yeah, that's right. Love it. And there's never usually one cause either.
No, never.
How often are you ever in just that perfect time and you just sit there and go, fuck, it's all just going really nicely at the moment. I've worked it all out. It's all balanced. Never. You never appreciate it in that time. I reckon I'll get there once I fix my back up a bit. I'll just walk out and just breathe the fresh air. I've been going to an exercise physiologist, Matt.
Have you? What's wrong with your back?
Wow, he reckons I've actually done my disc. I thought I just had sciatica, but that's actually just because I've done the disc. So.
Have you always had ongoing issues with your back? Has it been a thing through your life, or is it only recent?
Yeah, I've had little niggles. He said because my core's pretty strong, so he said it's not as bad as it would be if you weren't strong. Do you know what I mean? But it's because of my knee. Did me knee when I was younger. Yeah.
That's what he thinks the cause is, but yeah.
Yeah, that's probably.
He's going on the hero's journey, so we'll just let him.
He's been carrying the burdens of the world on his back. That's where that weight's coming from, I reckon.
I've had a regression lately, haven't I, Mads? But I'm back. Yeah, I'm always like that, one step forward. Yeah.
Had a regression.
That's okay.
Seasons of life, all the seasons.
All right. Well, I think we might wind it up. I don't know if this was better than the first one.
I have no idea.
We'll never know.
The first one was just for us, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
we enjoyed it.
I mean, you just got so much good experience and knowledge to share. I think, Chris. I think probably even just the process of making this film, you must be learning so much going through it. So, yeah, we've loved this chat, and I think Madeleine's asked you to come on to our private chat next time on Earth, and then you can be a little bit more. You can just fully open up there. No one's going to say nothing. Got names.
Yeah, that's an honor of the highest. I'm telling you, it's awesome. Yeah, I'd love to.
No, I think they would really love you. Actually, it might be good. Might be good to have you on even with someone else, like a round chat. So, but yeah, for people that want to check out the film and also your other work, can you let us know where
Yeah, of course. So basically, for the project of the documentary, anavasi.tv, Anavasi, and any social media, Instagram, YouTube, it's always Christopher K Film, as in Kay. So Christopher K Film, and the website christopher-k.com.
Nice. And I like that you go off Christopher because we had a chat with Charlotte who does soul contracts a
Oh
couple of,
yeah.
and she was talking about how people have these derivatives of their name and these are kind of like they can work through different alters within the personality.
I think it does
And
change because
since then, I've been calling Madeline Madeline much more. But
yeah,
Yeah, and it throws me off sometimes.
I think it's true. I think it really does matter what you refer to yourself as, and what you stick with. Christopher's my birth name. That's what I was named at birth after my mum's father. And apparently that's what everyone called me. I don't remember this up until the age of 5. And then someone called me Chris in prep and I started crying.
really?
And then for years after that in high school, if someone called me Christopher, I'd start crying because everyone called me Chris. So I used to get pissed off about that.
So
And now I'm just like, I don't give a shit. You can call me what you want, but I'm going by Christopher myself. So yeah, that's fine.
when did you in your adult life start introducing yourself as Christopher? What was that?
You're gonna laugh. It was when I had my awakening of sorts back in 2010, and I had a near death experience. Really quick side. So I don't know if we've got time for this, Evan,
Go,
but
you
Oh,
gotta go into it now. You can't.
um,
3 hour podcast or a thing.
You can't just-
my this was the first real run into an area where I went through a pretty full-on breakup at this point. There was a lot that happened in the space of about 5 years. We had 7 deaths in our immediate family in 3 years. So it was like dominoes. It was like a lot of people passed away. Dad's both his younger brothers in their 50s just dropped dead from an aneurysm, like really full on. And whilst the second uncle was in hospital, with a brain bleed, basically, I was driving to work because I had to run the family business at the time and I wasn't doing anything creative that I wanted to do. I'd sort of detoured away and I was quite lost in life and I didn't know where I was headed. It was like, oh, stop chasing pipe dreams, don't make films, you've got to get your reality sorted and everything else. And then I was in a car accident, that nearly killed me. And my car got split in half and nearly pushed through a house and I got out without a scratch. Now, the guy who was driving the car was actually one of my closest friends in primary school that I hadn't seen for 20 years. And I'm not making any of this up.
Oh my gosh, I just got shivers.
I then got taken to the hospital. So I'm in emergency and my uncle's on the 6th floor and we're in the same hospital. My dad spent the night there because they said my uncle was going to die any minute, basically. And he died a few hours later from memory. I can't remember if it was exactly then. And then that opened up that whole thought process of if I died then, and this is weird because I don't have a scratch and my car is basically in half. It was a little hatchback. And I was like, I don't know how the hell I'm walking around. But I checked myself out. I didn't even let them x-ray me. I'm like, no, I'm good. And they're like, really? And I was like, I'll sign whatever you want. Just let me out. And I sort of went and had a coffee with my mum in the lobby of the hospital. And then I went through, it was probably a couple of years that had to pass, but I went through a really open space and I started talking. I met a psychic and I became really good friends with her and we started going into journeying together and doing all this stuff. And she opened me up to a lot of things on that side. And I saw that's when I really started shifting by going by Christopher because I felt like I'd gone into my intention and my purpose here. And it's, taken some detours along the way, but that's what led here. And that's the story behind that part of it.
I mean, there's so much to unpack around that too. You actually like
Wow. Did you get to that? Like, so you almost died. Did you go, okay, I've got to change my life now? Did you go
Yeah.
through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was straight away. It was basically my parents sold the business. I even saw that the grief that they'd gone through, they basically hadn't traveled much up until that point. It was like they'd been to Singapore on their honeymoon and then they were working together and they were in a business together. And it was that thing of how many more people have got to die before you two start living your lives? You've been living it for your children, like it nonstop. And it's like go and enjoy. Like you've worked your ass off, go enjoy. And then when they went and did that, I was like, wow, I better take my own advice here as well and actually start doing what I want to do. And that led into, overseas travel for me and really getting into that. Here's where you start that mission of finding yourself. Before then, I felt like I was sleepwalking. And it was like I was still open to things and questioning stuff, well
Yeah.
before then. But this
Yeah.
was just that catalyst where I think it starts with a little tap on the head. And if you don't listen, it slaps you in the mouth and then it gives you a punch in the face. Then it roundhouse kicks you. And I copped a car going through an intersection at 80. to snap me out of it. And I was like, okay, I'll listen from now on, I promise. And
Mm.
that's where it's stuck ever since. And since then, I feel like it's once you move into that space of not really worrying about it, other than the illness, which I thought I'd had everything sorted, and then it's like, oh, you still got this one to worry about. I don't think it ever ends.
Yeah.
No,
You're always in the
definitely.
cycle, and in the
Yeah.
last 5 years, it's been amplified to such a degree. It's not only gotten louder, it's gotten more, consistent. And we used to have like, back then when it was either car accidents, like, wow, you remember that bad era into the summer of 2010? Wow. And now it's, hey, you remember the fortnight 2 weeks ago? We're fucking going through this shit again, aren't we? And it's just this, and it's chaotic, but that's where we're at. It's very amplified right now, but it's the fastest growth corridor you could ever go through. I think it's a really beautiful thing. It's not bad at all.
I'm just thinking
Mm.
what Charlotte said too, because I don't want to misquote her too, but it's like when you go back to your full name, that was like, and even Georgina speaks about that. Is the name is like that's like the soul contract that you come through with, right? So it's weird that you went down the path of Chris, and then you had this big dramatic experience, and then so you went back on the path that you were meant to go on, and then at the same time changed your name to that as well. So
Yeah.
it's
And
great.
that's a pivotal thing too. Like that's even like this symbolic kind of representation of the cast splitting into. Like there could have been
Yeah,
one
yeah.
timeline. Well, one timeline did end for you,
I really think it did.
you
I
know,
really
like
think it did.
yeah, and yeah, I mean, yeah,
I'll tell you very
that's
quickly
pretty cool.
a follow on from that where I learn about what layering there is in a subconscious or a simulation or whatever you want to call it. There's a million ways this could go. But what I started seeing, I spoke to this healer that I was hanging out with at the time. I got into some really interesting places with people and was just very, very curious. Curiosity led me everywhere. And I was like, I need to learn more. I want to know what's going on, but I need to feel it as well as know it. And I got told to look out for synchronicities and symbols. And I studied philosophy when I was in uni, like first year, and I thought it was just a muck around subject. And it was like, hey, just, this is where all the stoners go and this is fun. And then all of a sudden it's, you're learning about Carl Jung and everything else. And synchronicity came up and I'm like, oh yeah, see, I've learned about it, but I've never seen it applied and I'm not understanding. And she goes, just keep your eye out for certain things that are going to appear in your path to let you know that it's got your back and you're in the right sort of stead and you're moving in the right direction. And it was every day for about, I want to say at least 3 months. And it was in a weird season where you don't normally see them. I saw a butterfly every day. And it'd be on the front porch as I walked out of the door in the morning and it'd sit there and I'd be able to touch it and poke it before it flew off. It was a trip. And then I started coming up with, I need to build a production company. I'm going to do this. So I was getting all my ducks in a row. And I came up with the name Doorhinge Studios at the time, which is now Doorhinge Films. And the reason I called it that was, well, the hinge is the integral part of the door that opens the doors. So it's like it's the small thing doing the maximum amount of work. And when I told the person who told me about the butterfly, she goes, you realize there's a thing called a butterfly hinge and that's your logo, right? And I was like, what? And I had no idea what I had done on that level. So everything just all the pieces fit. It was wild. So wild.
It's so
But
good,
yeah,
Yeah,
man. And this is
that's
like there's like the synchronicity face. Like when it hits you, you just go. I just smile now. I
yeah,
smile.
me too. Me too.
We need to talk a bit, Donovan, about this too. That maybe used to riff pretty well. Yeah, it's that it's like, and it happens sometimes when you're in public and you just walk around. And you're like
yeah, you
this
can't
guy's
make it up.
guy
Sometimes
just
it's
looks
so
like a nut job
oh
laughing
my,
at himself.
yeah. Even conversations as well. You'd be talking about something, and the next day you're talking to someone in completely different space, and the same thing's brought up, and it's like I don't even know how that's happened. Even the same wording. Um, I think
Well, do you know one I had just before I came on here? I said a word, and Madeline said, "Don't say that word." Right? I texted her, and she said, "Don't say that word."
Oh,
Just
yeah.
before we got in here. Then I went, "Yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that word." Then I clicked onto Instagram, and it jumps straight onto a clip, and the first word that comes out is this word, just completely. And I'm going, I think Madeline's right. She's right. Maybe I shouldn't have said that word because what's the odds? Literally jump straight to a video and the first word that comes out. And that's what they're talking about. Yeah. Or
Unreal.
that's just AI algorithms. But yeah,
Yeah.
or both.
But it's, yeah, I mean, that's our access to the field, isn't it? Like we're kind of, I think that's when we're, how the psychic said that's when you were like, it's got your back or whatever. Like I see that it's like you're in flow and you're kind of in that space that I think all the philosophers and all the mystics have spoken about through the ages to getting to that point. I think like when you're seeing those synchronicities, that's when you're in that state, because it's like you're in that's when it's kind of like you're seeing through the simulation. You're actually in that state. And I feel like that's how the ancients used to live. And that was normal. And now we're like, oh my God, but it's actually like, it's because we've kind of like forgotten and gone off path. Like we're so blown away by it. But like back then it's like, of course, like, of course.
That's why I love the journey of the book. Like when you start reading a book and then you put it down and then everything you read for those 20 pages is just popping up everywhere. And then you go back to read another, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the whole book just takes you on this synchronistic journey.
Do either of you ever get into that space where you're really pondering a question or trying to move towards a certain direction in life, and then you see, let's say, a feather or something, and you look at it and you go, well, which one is it? Are you fucking telling me that or that? I don't know. And you're stuck in this ping pong match.
The moment you're asking those questions, you're like, you don't know.
You just let it go at that point and just leave. Yeah.
Have you ever asked for a sign? I'm like, give me a sign. And then like a pretty clear sign will come down. You're like, yeah, that's a pretty fucking good sign. But like, can you give me another one? Like,
yeah.
Sign.
I've never done it too consciously. I don't think it works as well as it should. It's like, it's when it's unexpected, or if you're expecting it, it'll hit you the next day when you've forgotten all about it and you're in that, that subconscious rhythm, and then all of a sudden it appears then. It's just nuts. One of my favorite topics, actually.
That's so good. Do you know the most synchronicities I ever had was when I read the book Synchronicity Key, and the whole book's about synchronicity, and it just constant. It just happened nonstop.
Oh,
But like,
cool.
yeah, I want to know because like Jung coined it. Like, what did they call it before that? Like, because he's not that old.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like,
I don't know what it was before that.
Probably just called it law, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Or song, yeah.
And I love in some of the interviews, a word I've been hearing often, at least in the last few weeks, has been magic. And I don't think enough people use it. And it's got like it can be a bad sense about it where people go into the black magic and it's, oh, magic's not good. And it's like, it's more about magic as in something's magical, where it's like, it seems like a very childlike word. But I think that's what we've got to reconnect with is, it is magic. You know what I mean? That's basically what it is. It's a magical thing when it happens.
Yeah, Disney's like robbed it now, but like I think your doco is going to be magical.
Magical.
Hey, the other question I've got to ask you, I thought, have you dyed your hair purple, or is that just the light coming from the?
Oh no, I haven't dyed my hair purple. That's just a light.
I'm like, dude, it's like
there's a light. You can sort of see it on the hand there. Yeah, there's a light there.
Like he's gone full purple hair on us. All right.
No way. No, not in a million
years. Getting a bit worried. Don't ruin your beautiful.
Very good lighting.
You got pretty long hair now, don't you, Chris?
It's crazy. I actually haven't cut it since I probably saw you, like other than getting, the back cleaned up and stuff, but I've just left it wild.
I think it's doing you well. I think don't cut it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it for a bit until the project's done, and then I'm going to go full space monkey military for my next one, probably.
Space monkey military.
New phase. I love it.
Right. Well, we better. Well, yeah. Have you got anything else to say, Mads, or you got any more questions that we didn't?
Any more pressing questions? No, not really. Oh, I did have something actually. And it was, you mentioned it briefly around I've been diving into Annika Lucas's work. I sent you a little bit about her and Dale mentioned it before. But she talks about the parts and how they kind of play out within the system. And there's different ones around like like the provider and the escapee and the controller and stuff like that. And you mentioned with with I guess filmmaking, that journey you had to go on with control and structure. Have you seen that then reflected like in your own life? Because obviously it's coming up as you're filming. Have you then being able to observe the changes in your own life, and what's that been like? Like, because you're essentially, it's, this is the thing with, I know for myself, like with business, I'll see stuff playing out in my business and it'll be really obvious to me, like, because I'll see it. And it's not until kind of, I guess, taking that silent moment of observation, I'm like, oh, it's in every area of my life that it's playing out. Like, I'd love to hear that. I guess, yeah, I guess your reflection on that, because it's a big one. I mean, I think a lot of people on some level have that,
I think
especially
pretty
at the moment.
much, I think pretty much everyone does that's moving into the space they're meant to be. It's like if they're not going through their own collapse of their old self while they're moving into a new space, that's a whole different thing. But when you're sort of getting your footing and moving into it, your whatever project you're doing or whatever job you're moving into or whatever role you're moving into, it's you that's moving too. It's so fractalized on how that's playing out, and 100% correct, because it's a great question, Mads, because when I'm sitting there trying to relinquish control, and it comes in the form of, before all this, I would write a script. I would know exactly who's going to play who. You would cast it. You would say this actor suits this role. This is how they're going to say the words. They bring their own creativity to the table. You have a great jam session. Then you're able to tweak it. The master control is actually in editing, because you're actually able to piece all this together. This is two spots where I've had to let go, is because I'm going into interviews where I don't know what they're going to say. I've got no idea. So I sit there and ask a question. I really don't know which way it could go. And I've been surprised a bunch of times where I'm like, oh, they're definitely going to feel this way, and they don't. And I'm like, huh, so this changes my overall project, but also my overall prejudgmental thing of wanting to have the control over what comes out of them, like they're puppets, because they're not puppets, they're people. These are people that you want to get their thoughts. And as soon as I've had that, I've realized without realizing that I'm applying that in every other form of life. I'm done controlling outcomes in general. And I'm getting better at letting them go. Where it was like when we lost the recording the other week. It was like, there's nothing I can do.
Oh,
And
I'll say that.
and Dale was apologizing, and I was just like, it's cool. It's like, it's not meant to go that way.
I was too
And we were
scared to
meant to
talk to
do
you all
this
day.
one.
I was too scared to talk to you. But you know what, Chris, it's so good how you're doing the movie like that, because ultimately what you're saying is you don't even know what
Yeah.
you don't really know what it's going to be. You've got some idea, but
Yeah.
you don't know like the gems that have come out of it. You have no idea.
It can take a different direction at any point, and I think you've got to be open to that with everything you're doing. It's when you've got a preconceived notion of what you need to move into, you're always going to be disappointed, because it doesn't come in that form. It takes a shape into something else. And that process and the journey through it is actually the thing that makes it so, rather than having a goal and then, getting to the goal and then that's done, tick it off, go to the next one. It's a matter of being in a state of fluidity around those things. I think you've got to permanently be fluid around it.
Yeah. It's
And
it's a bit like how we run the conference too, Mads, isn't it? Like we have a general idea, but we just leave it open, especially to stuff that can be happening in our own lives or to everyone around us, like over that period, and it just whatever comes up comes up.
Which I think, like, I really think that is the unity of like the feminine and masculine, really, because you've created like, I guess, a container or like a structure, and instead of like controlling I guess what's put in there, it's like you've just created this space, and then, which I guess is intention. And even if the intention is really just, almost like you can't even put it into words, you know what I mean? Like it's just coming from within, from your core, and then whatever flows through. And that is actually like painting, and and it's like such a good analogy for life.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. There's no better way to put that. That's perfectly said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think people at the moment are struggling with the whole, we need certainty. I'm noticing that come up within myself.
Yeah.
That's the only certainty is uncertainty. You know what I mean? That's the golden rule, basically. It's like it has to be that way. And I had it redefined to me. I was always coming at a point from what my lessons have been, not only through the project, but the last 5 years and going through what I went through in the dark night of the soul and the aftermath of that and everything else, is it's about finding true balance in everything. So it's like finding the midpoint. And then my sister-in-law, who I love to death, actually corrected me. And she goes, balance sort of states, even if you're talking about, masculine and feminine balance and everything else, it denotes that there has to be a 50-50, and there doesn't. She goes, I think the word you're looking for is harmony.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's a really good point. So it's about harmonious outcomes in terms of having that space to move into those things. That's where it all comes from for me. That's been the biggest one, I think.
Wow. Well,
That's
I just shared on my Instagram because I just started another latest David Icke book, and in the first chapter he says the only certainty is uncertainty. He actually says that.
Oh, no way.
Exactly what you just said. That's what I was like tripping. And then the other bit too is what Will Keller was telling us about yesterday. He said he was talking exactly about everyone thinks this is 50-50, this balance, and he was talking about the yin yang. And like even the masculine is 80% masculine, 20% feminine. They're like the
I don't want to start digging into other topics here, but isn't it
it's
incredible
just crazy.
that
You've got
all
about
of us, no matter where it is on what side of the world, even if we're not communicating and we're all finding our tribe groups and whatever else we're doing, and we're doing the work and we're moving towards what we're meant to be doing,
yeah.
that all of us in a weird way are in the same leg of the race, and we're all discussing the same topics. I reckon if I didn't talk to you guys for 6 months and I went off with my own group of people and then came back, we would have a very similar outcome to get to that 6 month point without even having to discuss it or be in each other's field.
Chris, there's an absolute confirmation on like even all the people that we speak to. It's not even, you can almost throw 95% of it out, and there's some fucking gem there that like they all hold. It's unbelievable. Like when I still can't get over like the stuff Will was talking about yesterday. It was just like my heart was just singing. And then I've seen so many different people, and they're like completely interrelated researchers, not even the same topics, and they're coming to the same conclusions, right? And then it's just, and I know you know this, Chris, because this happens to us, right, all the time. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, the ones that are arguing over such thing, this is where you see that other side of this too. They're all talking about the same thing, but they've got different words or
yes.
terminologies for it. And I'm like, oh, fucking stop arguing. It's like you're talking about the
So
same goddamn
true.
thing here.
It's so true.
Even like you
Drives me
see, I've
nuts.
heard it like numerology, been getting numerology a bit, and then so all these numerologists come in. That's not what it means. The four means this.
It's so true, isn't it? That is, yeah. It's so wild
I
right
mean,
now.
the religion one's the greatest example ever. And then, like, I've tried and relate like the Jesus story to movies, so many movies, and they're like, "It's not a freaking movie." I'm like, "Oh my God, mate!" Like, fucking, like this story's everywhere. It's
Yep.
It's in the
Yeah.
building blocks of reality. It's like it's in nature. But anyway, let's we'll
Yeah,
go off, we'll go off on a whole other topic. Oh, wait, are we ending it now? I've tried ending
well,
it.
yeah, to be continued in the Sky to Earth conference. So.
Yeah, so I was going to say come join Sky Earth, but we're closed now. So for those of you that
Oh,
are
well, I said people could join for the first 2 weeks because then otherwise it's too much to catch up on.
all right, well, do we give them a discount if they join now?
Yeah. Dale is the discount.
All right, well, I will leave that in the notes. So yeah, if you want to hear more of Chris, come and chat. It'd be good. And yeah, it's just pleasure, mate. Absolute pleasure. And I just pray to God that this recorded.
Likewise on both of those counts, yes. I'm glad to be here and talk to you both, and I hope it fucking recorded.
Hey, if
Absolutely.
it didn't record, we are not doing this again. We are not doing this again. No, I
Oh,
kept
shit.
checking up in the top right multiple times, like, yep, it's recording. Yep, it's recording.
It's like PTSD kicking in.
Yeah, do you know what I felt? I felt bad for you. Like personally, I didn't
I know
care.
you spoke so, I mean, you kind of made up for it then, but I was like, it wasn't so much what we said. We just talked crap as per usual, but like you just spoke so fluently and I was like, oh man.
You can't have lost that. You can't have lost that. That was a great.
I was so pissed. And then I asked like 5 hours later, I was like, so did you find it? No. Because that's what happens in the past. Like
It's had happened in the past.
It's lost. And I'm like devastated, gone through the stages of grief. And then the next day it's like, found it. Okay. Cool.
Oh, cool. Well, do you know what, Chris? You could even, if you want, I could play. Oh, it's not your trailer, but like that little clip of.
Yeah, sure.
So I can actually clip that on the end of here, so we can play that as an outro instead of our stupid down on the Riverina. Yeah. So if you want to send me that, that'd be great, and I'll put it on here so people can have.
Probably down arena.
No, well, we can have both. Anyway, go check out. We'll put links. Chris's link. We'll put Chris's links below. So yeah, definitely go check out his work. And
thank you so much.
No, thank you both, and you're doing amazing work, and good luck with the rest of the conference and everything as well. It's always unreal talking to you both. So my pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Legend. Yep, likewise. All right, catch you later.
Yeah.
What have we become? Why do we feel trapped? And how do we rise above it all? In a world designed to keep us asleep, the questions we've long ignored are now unavoidable. This isn't just a film, it's a journey, an ascent to inner standing, to waking up from the illusion that has kept us disconnected from our true selves. We are at a pivotal moment in human history where we begin to question the narratives we've been fed and reclaim the divine spark within us. At the heart of Anavasi are interviews with incredible minds from around the world. Scientists, trauma experts, holistic teachers, indigenous leaders, public speakers, all sharing insights from their unique fields. This all runs parallel to a beautiful narrative film showing humanity at their most vulnerable, their most transformative, and at their most empowered. Together, they weave a story of awakening, of breaking free from the cycles that have bound us for generations, and of reaching a higher consciousness. But to bring these vital stories to life, we need your help. Through the Australian Cultural Fund, your tax-deductible donations will allow us to complete this film and share it with the world. Your contribution is more than just funding a film. You're helping to light the way for a collective awakening. Join us on this journey. Contribute today and be part of something truly transformative.